Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm here to talk about the originals, episode 504, titled Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, which premiered Wednesday, May 9th, 2018 on the CW. I'm recording about 2 hours since the episode, or an hour since the episode has ended. That's after 11 p.m. for me. So huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first. Then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. Otherwise, other video reminders are up on screen. Take a moment to remind yourselves of those. I'm going to try to do this in 10 minutes. Less of a recap, more of what I thought about the episode, but I'll give it a try. Starting the 10-minute clock now, and let's begin with what happened in this episode. So timeline-wise, enough time has passed to allow for Klaus to return from France to New Orleans. So, there's that. Storyline wise, though, I picked up on two distinct ones, setting wise, I guess you could say. First one was Klaus threatening the factions in order for them to be motivated to finding Haley. Second one being Freya checking up on Hope as she is back at the Salvatore boarding school. So there's that. So with the first storyline, we have Klaus taking hostages, one from each of the factions. So we got Josh for the vampires, Colette for the witches, and David for the wolves. So there's that to kind of guide themselves before Klaus's actions. Vincent and Ivy do another reading, which claims that Klaus is bordering the line, but he's on the right side in regards to his actions. The moment they knew that his actions will turn sideways, the cards tell them and they intervene. So anyways, mainly we find out that Klaus is doing this hostage faction thing, not only for more people to get on board with finding Haley, but also to figure out how they react to the threat. So he discovers that the witches offered their help. The wolves tend to be more worried over the fact that their alpha is missing. It was the vampires that were resisting the command and threats from him. So having him conclude that it was a vampire that took Haley. So there is that. Moving on to storyline number 2, where Freya checks up on Hope at school. This is where we learn that Hope is trying to find ways to undo the cloaking spell without actually needing to be right beside Haley, since it was her cloaking spell that ultimately left her to be undetected. Also, Freya reluctantly tells Hope about the truth of the prophecy that was told before her birth, as well as the reading that Vincent and Ivy had about her and why they fear her. Last scenes of the episode show Klaus recognizing a clue behind the vampire that took Haley in the form of a coin, which is very distinct to something in his past. Now, character-wise, though, with Greta, that redheaded vampire, she apparently shows no loyalty towards Haley. She's not even interested in finding her, despite her orders. David, the wolf hostage, was killed by Klaus, as well as the witch hostage, Colette, who ended up getting, or they both got their own separate burials by their own factions. So there's that. Licinia, the one acting as leaders of the wolves in Haley's absence, believes that the wolves are on their own and that a war has been waged against their kind, not only with the death of Henry, one of their very young, but also with the kidnapping of their alpha in Haley. So there's that. Also with Vincent, though, we have him specifically threatening Klaus to pretty much, if Klaus attacks any of his witches, then Vincent himself will wage war against Klaus. Not Vincent collaborating with the other covens, but Vincent himself, which is something he urges Klaus not to test his patience with. Tidbit-wise, though, move forward. This episode does not show Elijah or Haley. In the episode last week's in 503, we had a huge Elijah-centric episode, which understands why he is absent in this one, as he refused to come back to New Orleans to help Klaus. But also with Haley disappearing, or being kidnapped, I should say, she hasn't been seen since episode 501. So that's a surprise right there. I hadn't expected the two of them. They've always been featured in every episode, if not even for like a small scene. And yet I think this is the first time we actually had them gone for lapses of time and stuff. But anyways, Haley, apparently they find clues of Haley having been tortured by Vervain and Wolfsbane, and she was also mutilated in the form of her crescent birthmark on her shoulder being cut off from her as a proof of life, or proof that that they have her, that they're communicating with. So there's that. Also, we have Klaus confessing to Marcel about how there's no trace of his brother in Elijah anymore when he went to go see him in France. Also, the kidnapper had called Haley a freak filth crossbreed when they left that message written in blood on the wall. And it was very interesting to see this because then it brought Klaus to bring up the issue of the fact that fear was a motivator against the differences that hybrids bring, especially now with Haley being targeted as a freak. I mean, she's not a werewolf, she's not a vampire, she's both. So that they're also pointing out the fact that Haley, Klaus, and Hope were considered crossbreeds to this perpetrator, as well as Marcel, because he's not technically a vampire anymore. Well, he is, but he's a different brand of a vampire. So it was very interesting to see that issue be connected with the supernatural elements, as well as kind of have a realistic tone to it, in a sense of society. But I'll leave it at that. But anyways, moving on to the most shocking moment of the episode, I think it has to be the fact that Haley's crescent mark was cut off from her. I was not expecting that for some reason. It was definitely brutal. And I'm wondering, as gruesome as it is, I'm wondering if she's had that cut off from her, if as a vampire and as a werewolf, if that patch of skin that was cut is gonna grow back for her, and if so, would the birthmark grow back as well? I mean, that's a gruesome question to have, but I'm curious. But also the fact that she was mutilated like this kind of reminds me of Augustine Society from Vampire Diaries, introduced in season 5. So there's that. I doubt it's connected to this, but that was a reminder there. But anyways, moving on to top 3 favorite moments. A major one I thought about was the team up between Klaus and Marcel at the very end when they went up against the vampires, implementing their new rules, taking away their daylight rings, and pretty much instilling fear in them together. First off, I mean, it was great when Marcel was addressing the vampires and saying that he's learned his lesson. He tried doing peaceful, trying to get their loyalty, but it led them all astray. So now until he has earned the trust of all his vampires again, and until Haley's found, he is implementing these new rules where he's going to track their movements, no daylight rings and all that. And the fact that Klaus was freed to do so with him was a shock, but I love that they were teaming up together. While it's bad to put fear into them, Klaus knows that fear is the only way he's going to get answers and get things done, especially in the dire situation they are in. And it was just great to see these two putting these vampires in their place, because at the end of the day, Klaus and Marcel are at the top of the food chain, especially the vampires. So it's just great to see that. Another favorite moment for mine would have to be Hope's determination to research anything in any possible way that she could find Haley, maybe creating a new way to uncloak her mother from the spell that she created. So there's that. Also, we saw for ourselves that Hope heals a lot faster than it is to collect blood for a spell. So it looks like it looks like the vampire part of her is kicking in, or is it the magic part of her that's making her heal faster than possible? So we do see that happening there. But I really like Hope's determination to go to the books and try to figure out through the history of magic and stuff like that, a new way, instead of just sitting back and just letting the adults handle things. I like that she's trying to figure things out herself as well. Another favorite moment I'd have to say is the scene with Marcel, Greta, and Lysina. I like that, even though it's a very bad moment, but I like that Marcel didn't hesitate to show who's boss against these two bickering women, who are putting blame on each other, not really focusing on the situation at hand, which is one of their own is being taken, and the clock is ticking for them to find Haley. And instead of arguing, Marcel gets pissed off, and he brings out the face and the threats about how, well, if Josh is killed, you two will be killed alongside him. And it's just, he's not taking names about it. It's just, Josh is a soft spot for sure for Marcel, and I really like that moment. It definitely showed that even though he's been gone for 7 years, he's still the boss. Like, he is. There's no question about it. It's just reminding you that, yeah, I may have been gone, but you got to know your place type of thing, especially with these lower ranking beings. I mean, yeah, it's harsh for Lysenia because she's a wolf, but for Greta, no, I don't like Greta, so I'm glad to see her put in her place and to know where her loyalty should be. So there's that. Moving on to top 3 peeve moments, I have to say a big peeve of mine I came to realize was the fact that the vampires have no loyalties whatsoever. I mean, it only seems to their own pure vampire will they have a loyalty. Maybe Josh has the possible exception in how he wants to find Haley just as much as anybody, but it could be very well because finding Haley means getting Klaus out of town, which is ultimately best for all of them. There's a timer there, though. But it's just shocking that vampires now have no loyalty when before, when we were introduced to vampires in New Orleans, they had loyalty towards Marcel. There's no question about it. And then now that he was gone, they just had no loyalty, or they're out for their own, or they really are only interested in themselves. And because Marcel's not truly one of them anymore, there's no loyalty to him anymore. So it was disappointing in a sense, but then that also means I can't trust any of the vampires because their loyalties could be for themselves only, essentially. I mean, they definitely don't have the loyalties like the wolves have with each other in that pack mentality. So there's that. What I remember most when I look back on this episode, the hostage takeover, the whole hostage situation that Klaus started. So there's that. Random questions very quickly. First one, did anyone pick up on how Joshua, Colette, and David, the 3 hostages of Klaus's, how they all looked to each other when Klaus brought up his actions being for hope when he was kind of talking to Marcel in that moment? I thought it was pretty weird. And the fact that it was focused on that exchange of glances, it has to mean something. I mean, they got to know who has Haley or an inkling of it, or maybe they're all doing it to get to Hope or to maybe drive Hope away. I don't know, but it's like those 3 or the 3 factions know something that they don't want the others to know. So wonder if anyone picked up on that or what it could mean outside of my own theory. So there's that. Another question is that if the perpetrator is calling Haley a freak-filled crossbreed, would they target Klaus, Hope, and Marcel in the same manner? Would they go for Hope because she is as far as the least experienced defending herself against when it comes to the other 3? I have no idea. I worry if they do go and attack her because then that means Klaus and Marcel are going to really go full force. But I wonder if this is going to be the perpetrator is someone new or like brand new unknown face that just came into town and acted, or if it is someone that the people of the city know and they just happen to bide their time in order to wait for the right moment to make their move. So there's that. Another question is, why hasn't Cole or Davina been contacted for their magical knowledge? I'm a little surprised by that, especially with Cole when he's been studying witches and all that for like 1,000 years, and his interest in it. I'm just surprised he hasn't been contacted to at least help from afar, if not in the city itself. So there's that. Also bringing up a past question of mine of whether or not Hope has triggered her werewolf curse or not, or werewolf gene or not, because of her involvement with Henry turning into hybrid, if that counted as her causing a death to trigger the curse, since giving him her blood meant that she knew he was going to kill himself in order to use it. So I'm just wondering if that counted as her triggering her curse. So there's that. But moving on to predictions. Based off the promo for 505, we have Klaus remembering a cult that slaughtered werewolves from his past, and he believes that they are connected to Haley's kidnapping. Also, we see Klaus entering a vampire den from the looks of it and trying to get answers from them, feeding on them from the looks of it as well. Also, we see Elijah for a brief moment in the promo as well. Photos, though, that have been circulating, promotional photos, show that there could be a potential flashback in this episode, which has Klaus with Elijah. So that means we're going to get the original Elijah, not this memory-wiped Elijah. So I can't wait for that to happen. But based off the synopsis for 505, it reads that a mysterious clue sent to Klaus leads him to one step closer to finding Haley. Antoinette opens up to Elijah after her past comes back to haunt her. Meanwhile, Marcel makes a decision that puts him at odds with Klaus. And finally, Hope takes matters into her own hands to fix the mess that she's created. Don't know how I feel about that. I really hope that Hope's attempts do not make things worse. That's all I hope for. But predictions based off of everything that has happened, I think that whoever took Haley is probably going to be the one connected to the person who killed Henry, if not the person who killed Henry. And for some reason, I still think Greta is behind it. She definitely has a very standoffish attitude, kind of like we look out for our own, which means purely looking out for our own. So, yeah, I'm not liking Greta at all. But anyways, what'd you guys think of the episode? What'd you guys like about it? What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about what you think is going to happen next. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. The link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, GIFs, synopses, news, all the good stuff, all found in one place. So go check that out. As well as my WordPress account. Link for that is down below. Everything's more organized over there. Everything I post online is connected to there. Both of them do need to be updated. I am fully aware of this. I'm hoping to get back on that very soon to update everything. So be on the lookout for that. If you want a more detailed recap of the episode, a play-by-play, if you will, check out my Livejournal entry link down below. It will be posted soon, but it is a play-by-play of the episode as I watch it for the first time with quotes, in-moment thoughts, any questions, anything that pops up as I'm watching it. It does help me keep things in order. It does ignite some things that I might have forgotten later on down the line. But if it helps you, fantastic. I figured I started it with Vampire Diaries. I might as well finish it to the very end of the originals. But yeah, guys, that's what it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back next week to see what I have to say about the next episode. But until next time, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week wherever you are. Bye for now.